was a mighty man, and to make matters worse, he was black. Black back in the days when black men knew their place was in the back. But this rebel still walked through Napoleon, who thought it wasn't very nice. And so today, my brothers in Haiti still pay the price, yeah. Everybody sing, Haiti, I'm sorry. We misunderstood you for so long, for so long. One day we'll turn our heads. Whoa, whoa, yeah, yeah. And look inside you. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Haiti, I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Haiti, I'm sorry. One day we'll turn our heads, restore the glory. Many hands are now reaching out, and this is how it should be. This tragedy of our brothers and sisters did not just rise from the sea. It's been that way over 200 years, paid in money and blood. So everybody now, let the love come down like a flood. Everybody, Haiti, I'm sorry. Haiti, I'm sorry. Whoa, 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 whoa. One day we'll turn our heads, restore the glory. Oh, 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 mama, yeah. Haiti, I'm sorry. Ooh, ooh, yeah, yeah. Haiti, I'm sorry. Ooh, oh, 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 oh. One day we'll turn our heads, restore the glory. When there is anguish in Port-au-Prince, it's still Africa crying. We're out in fires in faraway places when our neighbors are burning. They say the Middle Passage is gone, so how come overcrowded boats still haunt our lives? I refuse to believe that we good people would forever turn our hearts and our eyes away. Trinidad and Tobago, Haiti, I'm sorry. Woo, 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 yeah, yeah. We misunderstood you for so long, for so long. One day we'll turn our heads. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. And look inside you. Now, everybody sing, sing. Take it down, take it down. I want to hear people sing. Everybody sing. Misunderstood you for so long, for so long. One day we'll turn our heads. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And look inside you. So show a vibe for him one more time. I want the whole of Trinidad and Tobago, send a vibe from this oval right now. Put something in the air. Put something up. Shine a light. Shine a light, everybody. Haiti, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Haiti, I'm sorry. Whoa, 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 whoa. Haiti, I'm sorry. One more time, one more time. Haiti, I'm sorry. Sorry. Blessings. Have a great calendar.
Very good evening to you. Very good evening to you, and welcome to Politics 101, the voice and the sound of the philosopher of Calypso, David Michael Rudder. I just feel like some Haiti tonight. Often, our politics in Guyana becomes so overbearing that we forget that we are part of a region, a wider region. We're part of a wider world. We're part of a wider African and Indian and Chinese and Portuguese diaspora. Haiti is still going through the pains and the pangs, paying the price for daring to rise up and take their freedom from the French. They never, Haiti has paid the price in money, as David Rudder says there. Almost $50 billion of today's money. They're paying the price with their blood. They're paying the price right now as gang warfare rules the roost. Haiti, we are sorry. We have not always said thanks to Haiti. Look at the way we treat Haitians in Guyana and the rest of the Caribbean whenever they come to our shores. I just feel like some Haiti tonight as we continue to keep vigil and to witness in Guyana. Brother Lincoln Lewis is joining me tonight. He's already here and he's ready. I'd like to welcome all of you down to Politics 101. The place to be at 7 o'clock every day except Saturday, from Sunday to Friday. We come, we meet, and we struggle. Good evening to all of you. I see Nevis is in the house. If you're joining us from St. Kitts or Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts, Nevis, Montserrat, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, Grenada, Petite Martinique, and Carriacou, Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, Jamaica. Wherever you're joining us from in our Caribbean, if you're joining us from Haiti, good evening to you. You know, we are one Caribbean. The slave masters and the colonialists didn't treat us as countries. We weren't countries. They treated us as one region. Remember, these things that we call countries, nation states, came into being in the second half of the 20th century. Before that, there was no Guyana, no Trinidad. We were one region. They treated us as one place. I remember going to St. Kitts for the first time and hearing them with the S word. You know, the rest of the Caribbean, they said C. And I perked up because I thought it's only we in Guyana that put the S on the C. And I did my research and I realized that St. Kitts, Guyana, and Barbados were the so-called centers of sugar production in our region. And so there was a lot of movement between Barbados and Guyana and St. Kitts. And I'm always amazed. I always think that Bajans have the uniquest of our Caribbean accent. Yet, when I've gone to places outside of the Caribbean, and even in the Caribbean, people, when you ask where I'm from, where you think I'm from, they will say Barbados first. And to me, we are so far away from Barbados in terms of our accent, but when others listen to us, they don't hear the difference. We are one Caribbean. And we in Guyana are not an island. And I hope and pray to God that we are able to democratize our country, that we can begin to take advantage of our oil wealth as all of us, and that we can help our sisters and brothers in the Caribbean to beat back poverty. Lincoln Lewis is coming on, and I remember reading when Critchlow and some of the trade unionists from the Caribbean, they went to Europe for a conference. And when they were coming back, they stopped at one of the conferences, the Pan-African conferences that Du Bois, W.B. Du Bois, was putting on. I think it was 1919. Lincoln would have the correct dates. And when those fellas, Marichaux and from Grenada and our own Christian, when they came back, they weren't talking about Guyanese independence and Grenadian independence. They were talking about Caribbean independence. When I teach Caribbean integration, I date my Caribbean integration back to that moment when those trade unionists came back, because I think that was the beginning of the trade union movement, the integration movement. Those trade unionists came back and they were talking about Caribbean independence. So when people get off and try to limit us, we must forget we are African, we must forget we are this, we must forget we are that, and I always, when people say, we're African Guyanese and we're not African, I know some people feel very strongly about that. And I usually ask, when did we stop being African and start being Guyanese? And nobody could answer that. We never stopped being African. We are both African and Guyanese. We are Creolized, but we are Creolized with an African base. Our Caribbean. Good evening to you and welcome to Politics 101 tonight. Let me bring in my guest, Lincoln Lewis, and let's get going with the interview. Lincoln, good evening.
Good evening, David. Good evening, brothers and sisters, friends and comrades, viewers and what have you.
And
glad that you have invited me tonight, David.
Yes, and remind us of that conference that Critchlow and Marichaux and them went to, what year it was, when they came back and they started to talk about Caribbean independence.
That conference preceded the ILO, the establishment of the ILO in 1919.
1919, so I got my date right, yes.
Let me, before I get into things, let me give a shout out to some comrades who have been doing a great job. You have invited me here tonight, David. I want to say thank you for keeping the flag flying. Without you and others, such as Ben Scott, Sherrod, Kadaki, Channel 9, television and radio, Village Voice, Norman Brown, and others. Without you guys, we would have been seeing hell in this country. The other opinion or voices like mine would have been silenced. So let me say thanks to you and every one of the platforms that are out there that I've mentioned, and even those that I did not mention, that are prepared to carry out alternative views. Let me say thanks on behalf of my family, my friends, my comrades, those who would want to remain silent and not want to be identified. Because I'm speaking tonight I am speaking for the voiceless. Thank you, David.
And thank you very much. And Brother Paul Slow and Rickford Bork, sometimes it's difficult to remember everyone. But thanks for remembering us. Yes. We were talking about that 1919 conference, that the ILO conference, as you said.
It was the conference preceded the ILO, the establishment of the ILO.
That preceded the establishment of the ILO, yes.
The trade union conference that preceded the establishment of the ILO. From that, the ILO was established in the United States. That way they started the first conference. Critchlow and a number of comrades, they preceded the political movement in this country, in this region, right? These guys were start to talk about 8-hour work day, 40-hour work week, holiday with pay, universal health care and education, prison reform. And they went into this. This what give rise or give birth to the 1926 conference. Because when they went back to the respective countries, they begin to work, keep the communication going. So basically, that's what that conference did for.
Yes,
that was
the catalyst
that shaped the Caribbean.
Course, right. Of course, the British Guiana Labor Union was formed in what year? It started in 1905 after the strike, but it was registered in 1919. It was registered in 1919. That's where it came from. You know, because the law came into being at that time to make trade union legal. Was that trade union was existing before? So it is not true to say that the union started in 1919. It's true to say that the union was registered. Registered in 1919. Go back to 1905. Go back to 1905 because you talk about the 1905 strike, and Walter Rodney, in his book, The History of the Guyanese Working People, really went into detail about that strike. Give our viewers a sense of how important that 1905 strike was, of course, for the formation of the trade union movement. But go ahead, talk to us about 1905.
1905 strike saw the Critchlow leading the workers in this country, primarily waterfront, to challenge the merchant class and the crown. That strike is the strike that really gave rise to that struggle that came along, shape the what you call the political direction post independence. That strike hit you have to say that that was the strike that hit the hammer that hit the nail that gave rise to that, because Critchlow at that time was able to get it was so effective. That strike was effective to the point where the governor of the time invite Critchlow to have an audience to make sure that to bring with a view of bringing back normalcy in the city of Georgetown, primarily the ports. And the port was what you call the heartbeat of the country, because that's where everything goes in and out from. And if you remember, Critchlow was 21 years of age.
Yes.
With a 4th standard education. He was able to carry that. Nowadays, when you make comparison, you talk about man 21, some people say younger experience. He need to go and wet his feet. But Critchlow at 21. He understood.
And there was a multiracial element to that strike, Lincoln.
Yes, yes, it was. It has the support of the people in the sugar belt. It had the support of bauxite workers. who were prepared to down tools with them to make sure that they succeed. Because remember, bauxite has to be shipped, sugar has to be shipped, right? And Critchlow had the ports all closed in Georgetown.
Yes.
So there was that unity. And what Critchlow did, Critchlow recognized from that strike the necessity to work across the aisle in making sure that various interests have been satisfied. He worked with as we go on, you will recognize that in 1929, it was believed. That was the year that he met with the East Indian Association, right? By then, the MPCA was registered and was there, but he met with the East Indian Association. And what he did was to make sure that in sugar, while they're depending on him immediately post 1905, what he did was to make sure that in sugar, where they're primarily East Indians, that they elect their own leaders, looking like them, to develop that trust and confidence in leadership, and for them to work together with the Africans on the other side.
And of course, you have similar developments in other Caribbean countries, Trinidad and Tobago, of course, Uriah Butler, and even before Uriah Butler, Cipriani, a white man, but standing on the side of the workers. You had Marichaux in Grenada, and it was a region-wide movement. And you mentioned
even in Dominica, yes, Jamaica, Barbados, they all had this. They walk across the aisle,
And of course, in the 1930s, it was these leaders that struck the last blow for the decolonization of the Caribbean with what we call the 1930s. They call them the riots. But the 1930s strike from Jamaica in the north right down to Guyana, it was a decade of strikes led by the barefoot leaders, as they call them at that time. And it was that 1930s.
If you remember, those were strikes,
Yes.
You aptly put them. Well, for expediency, in the quest to demonize the struggles of the workers at that time, they deemed them to be riots.
Riots, yes.
Right? So what happens today, it is the same. We come a full circle where the persons who are now leaders of the respective countries, primarily Guyana, use those terms to demonize the struggles of any group.
Yes.
The naming of individuals, naming of activities in a derogatory sense demonizes the struggle and force people to stay far away from it.
Yes, you're so right about that.
We have that right now in Guyana.
Right now. And good evening to you in the audience. And bear with us if we go through some history, because, well, I don't have to tell you all. Part of what we do here is education. If each of you can leave here with one little bit of knowledge that you didn't have before, you are more empowered. Because it was those 1930s strikes that led the British to send a commission to the Caribbean to find out why were these people striking. You know, you enslave people for over 3 centuries, colonize them, and they're rising up, and you are sending a commission to find out why they're striking. Of course, the commission tell them that the people wanted independence, and so the independence movement, the decolonization movement, came out of those 1930s demonstrations and strikes. And of course, they preceded, as you say, the political parties, the mass political parties. The PNP, I think, was formed in 1945 in Jamaica, the PPP 1950 here in Guyana, and so on and so forth. And those political parties came out of the political arm of the trade unions, no? Not so, Lincoln?
Very much so. All of them.
Yes. All of them. Lincoln, let's come to the present.
Before you move, David, you made a comment just now about in giving an explanation what we are doing. You said it's a process of education. Let me give you one. It is not only education, but we have to correct the miseducation that takes place in the system. Let me give you an example. I saw TikTok today, and I never thought people think like this. There was this young lady lying in bed. She covered up, and she said, well, today the cash grant is going to be paid, and the APNU people will now be lining up for orphan money. They were there, you never used to get, but all of them get 7 and 8 children, and now they're going to line up for orphan. You know, I never thought that I would have reached the stage where somebody think that this money that is being paid out by the government belong to an individual or belong to the government. You know, they fail to understand that that money is the property of even she who is speaking. It is our property. We own the state. Not the state owns us. The state operates on our behalf. I'm saying this because that's the type of miseducation that exists in the system. And you know why you have it? We have it because we have a system of education which speaks about no child left behind. They ain't got pass. All they got to do is pass through. You got to pass the exam in one class to go to another. All that you got to do is pass through the school. You don't have to be educated, because what you see there is indicative of what the system is producing.
It's producing no civic education, and we have to, Lincoln, we have to call out our so-called politicians, because you listen to political speeches and they will spend an whole hour telling you what Jack Dio do, what this body do, what that body do, and so on. And that is fine. You have to expose the government. But they don't teach their audiences that public education that Eric Williams did in Trinidad at Woodford Square, what they dubbed the University of Woodford Square, that Burnham would have done at Independence Park parade ground. It used to be that Walter Rodney would have done at Merriman's Mall. That kind of public education where people would come out, bring the chair, bring the bench, and sit down, and they would hear a critique of the system, but they would learn something about them, their country, their region, and the world. I born and grew up at Buxton Line Top, and I would lie down at nights and hear the big men. The first time I hear about the Cold War, I didn't know what it meant. People like Amos and these big men with a little pocket radio listening BBC, arguing at the line about the Cold War. I said, well, what is Cold War? I'm 8-9 years old, right? The point I'm making is that our politicians themselves today are not politically educated. They're bright people, don't get me wrong. They pass the exams at school and so on, but they're not grounded in history and politics. And so when they come to the public sphere to speak, their speech is all about what Jacques Diot do. And as people in Buxton tell me, David, tell them, and we know what Jacques Diot do. We want to know. We want them to tell us what we gonna do. You see? And so it is the formal political system, the formal education system, as you say. I think we should bring back civic education. But it's also our political people who themselves are not informed. And so therefore they're not passing on valuable information to empower people. You see? And it's a real crisis in our society, something that we definitely have to correct. And that is why I was glad when, you know, your organization, the new organization that you formed, the Institute Against Discrimination, I think you call it, were going around the villages and the communities and holding those forums, you know. Sometimes people say, well, all we doing is talking. You know, talk is cheap, but education is invaluable. You see, public education is so important, because as political people, we are not only teaching, we are also learning. Sometimes I forget a date on this program. Sometimes I forget a name. And I tell you, Lincoln, without hesitation, in less than a minute, somebody would give me that right date, that right name. So I am learning even as I am teaching. And it is that I think that the other side is so afraid of, that they call us memory warriors, because we talk about slavery and we talk about, and they understand that when we talk about those things, we are empowering people about their own history so that they can make comparison between their history and their present. And that is what they fear so much about this public education that we are doing. Your comments?
It is a fact. Let me give you an example of something. In 1990, when the first bomb was thrown, the first night after the first night that the bomb was thrown on Iraq, the next morning I was talking to a group. They were young men and women. And he had a man who said he was 87 years of age. And that man gave us a lecture about the Persian Empire, the history of it. And when he was finished, everybody who had sympathized with what the Americans were doing, they turned around and they said, this country and these people are villains.
Mm-hmm.
Because the man described, the man give you the history, and the man could have called every country that came out of the Persian Empire and say what has happened over there. That is the education that we need, and that's the education that the government fear in this country. People bringing people, because the man who is 25 now did not protest in Linden in 2012. He was going to school.
Yeah.
The man who is going to vote for the first time I don't believe he can even remember properly what happened in 2012 in Linden. What needs to be done is that people need to be educated about the issues, the activities that occurred over a period of time. One of the things that we fail to do, fail in doing so, while we fail in doing so, what it caused some malaise in the society. And many of us believe that people know, whereas people don't know. Right? But as you said, when we bring that history, we must be able to see what is the way forward, how we're going to move with it. That will help you.
Yes, because what the history does is that the history taught us how people in the past were able to right the wrongs and correct the situation, and so much we can learn from that from that history. As simple as you said there, that Critchlow was 21 years old. He's leading a strike in 2000 in 1905.
Yeah.
Jagan was 35 years old in 1953 when we are forming the first self-government. Burnham is 30. Sidney King is 28.
But notwithstanding that, David, in 26, when Critchlow and others met in Georgetown, started to talk about one man, one vote.
Yes.
You understand? Chelliu born 1918, right? Was 8 years of age.
Mm-hmm.
Burnham, who born 1923,
mm-hmm.
was 3 years of age. Right? This man is the man who set us on course.
Yeah. And all the talk about father of the nation and all that kind of thing, I think we get into a lot of silly talk. I mean, you know, in a country as diverse as ours, you know, one cannot talk about the father of a nation. One has to talk about the fathers and the mothers. You know, I mean, if you're talking about nationhood in Guyana, you have to go back to Kofi and Akere and them, you know. Those were the people that held Berbice for months and give us a sense of what nation was and what it came to be. And they're doing this in 1763. Before the American Revolution, before the French Revolution, there is the Berbice Revolution. You see? And sometimes I hear...
And before the Haitian Revolution.
There you go. And sometimes I hear historians talk about the 1763 thing was a failure. You have to write your history. And you have to decide what is a victory. That is why when C.L.R. James wrote The Black Jacobins, that explained the Haitian Revolution and humanized the leaders of the Haitian Revolution. He was saying you have the Jacobins in France. And it was the same spirit that led to the revolution in Haiti. That eventually triumphed in Haiti. So we have to write our own history. And historians ought to get out of this business of failures. We are not a failure as a people. Our leaders may have failed us, but as a people, we are not a failure. We have survived to this day. And that is why this coming of oil is so important, that those people who are in their 70s now and 80s and 90s, they must enjoy some of this oil money because they help to keep Guyana together. That when we found the oil, we are still a country. We could have been wiped off the map had it not been for our people. And we have to ensure that before these people die, they benefit from the oil. And that is why we have to fight We have to fight. Yes, we have to fight for a better contract. God bless Daggers and Glenn and so on. But we also must fight equally for the little that we are getting now to be divided equally. And I don't hear that pivot from the people who are fighting for this contract to say we also have to fight to get this government to divide the bread that they're getting equally, equitably.
Let me tell you something, David. I hear you on this point. From the first day that we started to talk about the deficiencies in the contract, the trade union movement, the Guyana Trade Union Congress have been out there to say, you can address that, but we must address what we get now. Let me see how we can be divided equitably among the people of this country, be it regions, be it NDCs, be it individuals. We must all have benefit from it. We must not allow a group to really hijack all this money and just they and their friends and their family benefit from it. Their friends, their family, their friends, their cohorts benefiting from it. We don't want that. And that is what is important right now.
Yes.
As I've been talking over the last months, and publicly I made a point on Labor Day that we want direct transfer. It's because we recognize what will happen. We're going to lose focus. We don't want to lose focus. Let us buy CSU running behind the contract. Let us give them all the support. Let them go and do that. Let me don't inhibit their struggle. But we must concentrate on the redistribution of the resources that come from oil and gas. Yes. That's my position.
And as you know, we share that position. We share that position, and God bless Clive Thomas, that as far back as 2018, 5 years ago, he said, let us take 10% of what we get and give to people, so that old lady who live in what we call a broken-down house could get some money, and that she can repair her house and that she can die in a proper house.
With her dignity intact.
We have to begin to talk about. These are things we have to begin to talk about. How our people can directly benefit from this money. I'm hearing the $40,000 that they're giving. By the time they give the $40,000, the uniform cloth in the stores downtown gone up. So the $40,000, by the time the people get it, it's no longer worth $40,000.
Well, let me point out to you. These same people who are telling you about $40,000 now, these are the people who took away and telling you they're going to give free books. These are the people who took away the free book.
There you go.
In 1993 or 94, it was taken away. In the 90s, the free book was taken away. The uniform thing was taken. The free education to university was taken away. Right? We have to remember that when you took away that university free education, it made it difficult for a number of persons who had aspiration to go on to university had to fall by the wayside. Now we are talking that we don't have the skills to run the oil and gas. We don't have the skills to run some things in the country. It is this government that created that. Free education was there. They will tell you all kind of things. That it was a study that was commissioned during a Desmond High time, and these people come up with the recommendation. Yes, a recommendation is there to be considered, not to be accepted. And people need to understand that. It's not something that we need to go down there and accept lock, stock, and barrel. We can't do that. It was there, it was opportune for them because they want to lock some people out from university education. You know, these people don't do anything without it's properly thought out, and to see who they can discriminate against, who they can push to the curb and cause them to slip into poverty. There are some people who could have paid. And the moment you reach to the position, we know the country that we live in, where while you may apply for a student loan, it still has to be processed. And the amount of hassle some people get, they have to abandon it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we have to look.
Let's go back to this point that you made, that these monies, these handouts, and I don't have a problem with handouts, you know, but handouts by themselves are not going to develop our country and not going to develop our people. All right. And so we need more than handouts. We need policy. We need structured policy, structured cash transfers and so forth. But the point you made that these monies don't belong to the government. And I think we have to keep stressing that, especially to Black people. Because, you know, there is something called the gratefulness factor. Being the academy talk about, you know, whether it was in the United States or here in the Caribbean, there were whites and brown people who joined the working class struggle, the Black struggle, whether it was the Bustamantes and the Manleys in Jamaica, or the Grantley Adams and them in Barbados. These were half-white people who joined the working class struggle. And our people were always grateful that here were people who were committing race suicide and class suicide and joining their struggle. And they were grateful to them. I always remind people that Jamaica did not get its first real Black prime minister until 1993 when P.J. Patterson became prime minister. Prior to that, they were all half-white brown men. And part of it had to do with the gratefulness factor. So I recognize that. But all people have to learn to be grateful without being slavish to people. And I think that is the fine distinction that we have to make it. I am glad that Black people get manners. I am glad that Black people are grateful for a government that looks out for them. But you have to be careful that when a government gives you $40,000, that you do not believe, first of all, that it's their money. Second, that they're giving you the world. Because that $40,000 is a drop in the ocean what goes into the bank account of the rich in this country every single day. So when you get $40,000, rather than to say thank you, Massa, you should use that $40,000 to whip Massa, to give you more than that. That is to take your own money and use it as a means of fighting for more. And I think that's the message we have to give to our people. I don't tell people take the money and vote against them. I think that is crass. What I tell people, take your money and use it to fill your belly, to give you strength to fight for more of your money. Lincoln Lewis.
Let me just go back to where you started. This issue of identity has always been a issue in the Caribbean. You made a point about PJ Patterson. I was at Miami Airport when Michael Manley was leaving politics. And I was near Jamaica. Remember, BW was next to Air Jamaica.
Yes.
And check in. And I heard the Jamaicans, they're discussing this thing. And one man said, I remember vividly what the man said. He said, I like Portia because Portia is rootsy. She can relate to the people down there. The other man said, I like PJ because regardless of what you do, people like people who are lettered. The other man said, no word all of though. I want PJ because I said, why? He said, because the first time Jamaica gonna be led by a black man. So we have had those experiences and we understand the dynamics in society like that. Like those.
Yeah,
Go
ahead, continue.
What we have now is a situation where the government is treating citizens like a dog on a leash.
Mm-hmm.
We determine where you go. In this case, they determine where you have.
How you vote.
This government
vote for
is saying that, look, say to them, if we give you this today, when you do this, I'm going to give you that. Right? They're not prepared to address the deficiencies at the NIS by putting in some money, move the deficit, make it viable, that we can have two things. We can have better pension, two things, better pension and better, what we call it, medical benefits. Those two. They're not prepared to put some money in the same NIS, where we can now activate the unemployment section of the Social Security Act, Chapter 33. Because if you activate that, the man who loses his job, he may be able to go to NIS and get unemployment. But what I prefer to do is for that man to scrunch and go to take something from them, and then they will tell you, this is what you got to, you take this, this is what you will have to do for me. It's a controlling thing.
Yeah.
And we have to start by some way addressing, let people understand that this money is not the government owned.
Yes.
And this money belongs to the people.
Yeah.
Now we're talking local government.
Yeah.
But you get some people inside, we're giving $40,000 and tell them come every month, but we want you to clean this gutter. Why we can't give them 40 plus a 20 and tell them one in Georgetown, we're going to set up something where you go to GITC. If it's 3 days a week or how much afternoon, and you want to do plumbing or you do welding. Why we can't tell the ones at Linden, don't worry the thing, because we're going to give you 60. That's 60,000, but 3 days a week, you're going to go to Linden Technical training center and you're gonna learn some trade, which makes you what we call employable.
Let me answer your question. Let me answer your question. Because you're posing a question why they're not doing that. You have to understand, we have to understand, and I know you understand that as ethnic groups in Guyana, we are competitors. And the political party of the ethnic group that they think is competing with the other ethnic group is not going to empower the other ethnic group. And I think that's a paradigm that we have to put in our heads, that when the next PNC-led or black government, whoever they call themselves, get into power, they have to put that on their agenda, not discriminate against Indians or Amerindians, but to ensure that their supporters' interest gets equal billing as the so-called national interest. That's the model in ethnic societies. We are going to waste our time expecting an Indian government to empower Africans, or to expect an African government to empower Indians. Now, the African governments in Guyana, I have to admit, have been easier on Indian people as Indian people than the Indian government has been on black people as black people. But I mean, look at the PPP model. And their model is that they are redistributing wealth, but they are distributing the hog of it to the Indian and Portuguese elite. And the hope is that that will trickle down to the Indian community, and that African people are getting much less. In fact, they're getting little or nothing. These things are not going to be done by the PPP. I think we have to take that.
Let me make this point to you, David.
What?
You know, as you talk there, you know, people will say that you're talking race. Well, let me tell you this. Race is important if you are going to do structural development.
That's right.
For instance, let us look at the African society. What are the illnesses that are prevalent in it? Diabetes, sickle cell. If you get specialists in diabetes and sickle cell, what you do with them is that you use those specialists who are doctors, you send them to communities where sickle cell and diabetes is prevalent, right? You don't send them to a community where their skills will not be maximized.
That's right.
So the issue of race is important in our development. So every time you talk about it, the government ready to say that you're talking race, but not only the government. African people telling you too that you. But the issue is that they don't understand how important race is.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
In the process of development in this country.
Yeah. And that is why I'm taking the liberty of talking to some of these young leaders in the PNC, that they have to re-educate themselves. They have to stop going to you go talking to a black audience of 500 black people, and you're telling them about how much Indian people suffering. You are past those people. They know Indian people are suffering. They come out to hear you, to talk to them about their suffering and what you are going to do about their suffering when you go to Port Morant. And you're talking to Indian Guyanese, then you talk to Indian Guyanese about their suffering. You don't go to South East Randveld or Denamstel and watch a whole group of black people, and you're not talking to them about their particular suffering and how that suffering in our multi-ethnic society is unique because of their unique history. You're telling them, well, Indian people suffering too. They should pelt you with some gang and get you out of there. You know, and so I am telling these The-
I want to tell you
because when they
something.
get, because Lincoln, when they get power, they will not use it for those black skinned people, because they've already get in the head that to particularize black suffering in the way that the Jews have particularized Jewish suffering, in the way that East Indians, sometimes they try to raise indentureship to the level of slavery. They particularize their suffering, and we have a set of black leaders who do
I
not
want to tell you.
particularize black suffering. Go ahead, my brother.
I want to tell you this, David. While they are talking about that, I want to tell you that people like you and me, we have the responsibility to remind them as they go along. You see, the Jews, they're talking about the Holocaust.
Yes.
Right? And it is getting traction. It not only gets traction, but it gets priority as you talk across, as you move across the world. The issue of the transatlantic trade, which is the greatest disservice that has been done to humanity, is not getting that traction because we ourselves are ashamed and afraid to speak about our suffering. And I'm saying to you that it has to be spoken about. Regardless of which government is in office, people need to be held accountable. Mr. Granger didn't like what both yourself and I write about his government. He didn't like it, so he gave the orders to get us out of Chronicle. What I'm saying to you, that whichever government comes, we must continue to write. We must articulate our reality, the people's reality. As a trade unionist, I have a responsibility. The trade union is a class organization. And regardless of which group is being threatened, I have a responsibility to talk about it.
Yes.
In this case here, the people who are attacked overtly are the Africans.
Yes.
I have to speak about it. I'm not saying that I will not talk about what happened in the Indian community. When the Granger government moved on the sugar industry to close down sugar estates, without talking and engaging with the unions, consistent with the collective labor agreement, we came out, the trade union came out, led by me, came out against the government. It is not because they are Indians only, but because the rights and the rule of law must be respected by every government.
That's right.
And they will benefit. And likewise, the rights and the rule of law must be applied to issues that impact the well-being of the African community.
Yes, yeah. You know, and I'm glad you raised that.
This nonsense that people walking around and telling you, this nonsense with people walking around and telling you, and this is what we should be doing. Like the local government election a couple of days from now, where they are paying people and take their ID cards and say they will vote for them. We must let people know that you can go and vote without an ID card.
That's right. That's right.
So let us keep the ID card, you take the money and go your way. Because it's your money.
It's your money. It's your money. It's your money.
And let me alert you people. Any money that is being paid to you is your money. And not Orphan, nor Bharat, or Nandalal money. And you have to understand that. You owe no one anything. They owe you something. They owe you to run this country in a manner that you can live comfortably and not crunch by the roadside for anything. They came to you, they offer their services, You elected them, even if you didn't vote directly for them. You participated in the process that caused them to be in government. They're expected to do better. Don't tell me anything about the PNC, the APNU, or the FC. You've been elected. You have to deliver. And that's the way we have to begin to see.
And
this
black people have to understand that that money is part of your grandfather and grandmother back pay that they never get for 300 years. African people have an added debt. All Guyanese have a debt. This country owe all Guyanese a debt. The Native Indians, the Chinese, the Portuguese, the East Indians, the Africans, all of us are owed a debt that ought to be paid by this oil money. But Africans got an outstanding debt because for 200 and odd years, they weren't paid. So they have an extra hold on that money and right to that money that is flowing now. And I am not talking water in my mouth when it comes to these issues. And we have to school black people to say, yes, you have more entitlement to that money than other groups. Because other groups, they were paid back.
Let me just tell you something.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. And this is where we just forget things. I saw a clip with the president of Anali talking to people in Kokwani about what they will do and what they will give them, what they think they're going to give to them. In 2000, when Barrett Jagdeo made his first visit as president to Kokwani, Aichoni, and Linden, you know what he said? I shall make Kokwani, in Aichoni, and Linden the industrial corridor of this country.
I remember.
Prior to that, in 1993, 94, January, December, when we said we're going to protest on the issue of bauxite and the depression in Linden. You know what the government said? The government said they are going to establish an industrial estate at Dalawala. Every hour you could have seen the address by the then President Jiga on the television in Linden. That is what they're going to do. Where is the estate?
Yeah.
Nobody asked him anything. Where is the industrial corridor that Jagdeo talked about in 2000? In 2003, you know what he said? He said when he was planning now to fold up the bauxite company in Bobbies, he said you give them money, you give them land for housing, you're going to give them land for agriculture. You're going to build an all-weather road between Linden to Kokwani. You didn't see the land for the housing. You didn't see the land for agriculture. You didn't see the land. You didn't see the industrial, the all-weather road. The all-weather road started under the coalition government. I'm raising this to you to understand. These people tell lies, promises, and people continue to buy these things.
Lincoln, we have to stop our people from buying them, and that if they're telling lies, we have to tell the truth and let the truth overpower their lies. And when we have power in our hands we have to govern by the truth. If there is one thing, that one lesson we learn from the APNU, AFC stint in office, and from the PPP stint in office, is that the model now in Guyana is that each political party is going to be burdened to take on board the interests of their supporters. The one tide lifts all has not worked. And when by the time the PPP leaves office, even if they leave in 2025, the Indian community would have an economic edge over the African and Amerindian community. That is a fact. And that the new government that comes in will have to put policies in place for Amerindian Africans to catch up. It's as naked as that. That's where we are. And that is why I'm talking to these PNC boys and girls to educate you all self about the political economy of this country and where it's going. The politics that we're fighting now is not the politics but Burnham and Jagan were fighting. There was an understanding that you didn't go past a certain point. Burnham knew that you couldn't go past a certain point in the Indian communities. And Jagan knew that you couldn't go past a certain point in the African communities. There was an understanding. There was a balance of power. The PPP today under Jagdeo and Ali, they have breached that understanding. They've breached that understanding. There's no longer an understanding. I was making the point about Buxton. At least they keep the understanding in Buxton. They came to keep their meeting. They didn't come to the line top. They stay at the roads corner. At Tipperary, they hold their meeting. When they're done, they pack up and go. Because that is the understanding. Don't come in my community and bring your nonsense to the Mecca. Keep it at the roadside. And when you finish, keep going. At least they kept that understanding in Buxton. But they're not keeping it in Linden and the other black communities because they pass people.
David,
yeah,
they went into Buxton. They went to the line top. Odinga went there and he had some eggs. You remember the story? Odinga went there.
I didn't want to that. You think they're going back for more of that? You think they got sense? And that is why I'm saying the black community has to develop deterrence. They have to develop deterrence because
let me make this point.
The understanding.
You are right. When the PPP can send their people to break down the office of the PNC, yes, regardless of the circumstances how they arrive at it, you have breached all protocol.
Yes, yes.
Right? And I want you to understand this. I want the viewers understand very clearly. The power is in your hands as a people to change this thing. This issue where you are called and being given money to vote is a pass.
Yes, yes.
It is equivalent to when some people in Africa were being paid money to go and catch Africans to put them into slavery. When you're seeing all these atrocities that are taking place against you, your communities, where if you are not in sync with what the government would like to have, there'll be no money given to your community if you didn't vote for them. And if they consider you to be a PNC or a WPA or an AFC and they're sharing cash grant, they will pass yours. These things are happening.
Yeah.
Now you're talking local government, which is the first tier of governance. And they come and they're giving you money. Why should you want to take the money on the express condition that you are going to vote, not your conscience? You are not going to vote for a group or a cadre of men and women who can repel the atrocities that are being committed by the government. We have to be like that.
Yes. Yeah. No.
It has to be different. We have to fight. The power is in the hands of the people in the street. And that's one of the reasons why I consistently call on people to come out and vote on the 12th. Because you are going to elect the people we have confidence in to run the show, and not Freedom House. Sitting down there, somebody sit down in Freedom House and saying who you must vote for. And if you don't vote for that person, you will not get your parapet clean, your garbage picked up, and those type of things. We got to come.
Yeah.
Or if Buxton don't vote for the PPP, then the equipment in the health center will not be serviced to deliver for the community, or the amount of pharmaceutical that they request will not be delivered on time and continuously. We have to, this thing gotta change, man.
But if
the power is in the hands of the people.
If it gotta change, we gotta change it. We gotta, when they come to our communities, we gotta say, you come here to ask for our vote. I'm asking you one question. If you don't win, will you use the central government to give the local government, to give the municipalities money? Answer that question first. If you lose, are you going to stop the nonsense of starving the municipalities and the NDCs and the regions that you don't control? That's the first question Black people should ask them. That's the first question. And if I'm PNC, I am telling my supporters when they come ask them that question. But the PNC leaders and the WPA leaders, we have to be conscious ourselves. If we are not conscious enough to ask a question like that, how are we going to tell our supporters what question to answer? We ourselves need schooling. And that's what I'm saying. The quality of leadership in the opposition political parties has to change. Our leaders in the opposition parties have to go and learn politics, learn their society, learn their people, and learn race, if they want to continue to be viable leaders.
Let me tell you, David, I agree with you. Those are questions you must ask. But let me go further. They will tell people, we're going to give you a house lot. You must come and get this. Okay? The law, the policy in this country that if you apply for 15 acres of land, state land for agriculture purposes, you don't have to do a business plan. We should also ask them that every time you ask me to vote, I don't have time to waste. I don't have land. I live by me. I live by my uncle and I live by my auntie on a piece of land thing. I want 15 acre land. Are you prepared to facilitate the process for me to have the 15 acre land? They will give you a house lot. But the house lot, you get 5 children. Whenever you're moving from this world, you may send one, you may give the house to one, the house lot to one. But if you get 5 children, I get a 15-acre land. I can divide that 15. I can divide that 15 among the 5, and they can divide it among the children. We have to own land too. People must ask so that the citizens must have to that. Not somebody coming from some country and they walk into go invest. And the next time they come out, they get 3 or 10,000 acre land. And you got to line up at Brick Dam to get 1 house lot, and it take you 3 years. Because land is generational wealth. It's for generation to come. We have to look at all the facets and make sure that people benefit. You don't have to wait until you get into government. The opposition must get off now and demand of certain things, must put the program in place where they can deal with this government to have their supporters. And not only the supporters, but have Guyanese in general benefit from the resources of this country. Got to fight back. It's time we fight back. And the power is in the hands of the people.
Lincoln Lewis here saying the power is in the hands of the people. We have to activate that power. We have to arm ourselves with the grit and the tenacity in order to activate that power. That power will remain potential power if we don't have the courage to activate that power. And we have to beat courage into our leaders. The local government elections are coming on Monday. You all know my position. My party not participating. But I'm saying all you do nothing to help the PPP. And all you do nothing to undermine the opposition that is participating. All right? Use your vote. If you decide that you're going and vote, use it as a serious weapon. Use it as a flashing blade against the PPP. And then after Monday, this conversation that we start now, we can join it. Because those who you all are going to raise from the dead on Monday, those who you all are going to save from embarrassment on Monday, they have to do right by you all. Because that's what you all are doing on Monday. You all are saving the PNC from embarrassment. You all are saving the PNC from looking shame. Let me say it blankly. And if you all are going to save them, you all have to let them know that after Monday, they got to fight for you all. It must be a new order, a new relationship between you all and your all parties. And I include myself in that. You all have to let us know that if you all are going to save us with your vote and save us with your bodies, then we got to save you all from the onslaught that the PPP is giving. There are no ifs and buts about that. There must be no more mockers. No more that place on the highway there, Hillfoot. All those things should come to an end. And the government is not going to stop it willingly. So we have to force them to stop it. It's as clear as that. We have to force them to stop it. And it means that the parties of the opposition have to speak with the voice of their supporters. They got to hear with the ears of their supporters. They got to think with the mind of their supporters. They can't be over there and you're all over here. They can't be saying we're not going on the road when you all want to go on the road. Let them infiltrate the marches. There comes a time when you have to beat infiltrators when they come in your march. You got to be prepared to do it. Don't say I'm not marching because they're going to be infiltrators. I marched in 2011 after the 2011 elections, and there were no infiltrators because we were prepared to bust their ass when they came. You don't sit in your corner and say you were afraid to march because of infiltrators. Bust their ass. You also have a man, according to Dick Gregory, you also have somebody like me as your opposition leader. I'm just kidding. Lincoln Lewis. Talk to me.
I want to tell you that leaders have to respond to the people who give him the power. If the people say they want the power to be used in a certain way, then we have to consider, see how you can use that power in a certain way for the benefit of those people. We can't talk. We can't blow hot and cool. You can't want the work, but you want to face the heat. Let me tell you this. The faster we come to realize something, that big business and some people money can well determine our behavior.
Yeah.
We have to start looking, David, and I want the people to listen. We got to start looking that we have to do things differently. But doing things differently don't mean that we are going to throw away our arsenal. Our arsenal must be part of the strategy towards the realization of our objective. You can't tell me, Lincoln Lewis, that it's a new dispensation, new order, and I must tell people they must not strike. In like manner, while I can't stop the employer from exploiting people, I can work to minimize that exploitation. I can't tell the employer, don't make so much money off the backs of the workers. That's what the goal they set themselves. But the goal that I set for us is that the exploitation not only minimize, but it must come to an end. And I got to work towards that. We got to meet at some point to talk and come to an agreement of what we're going to do. But I ain't going to tell nobody, don't strike.
There you go.
Don't strike.
Don't strike. I'm not going to tell nobody don't march. Lincoln Lewis here tonight, saying it like it is, and we've gone long over time, and you all stay with us. Sorry, Sherrod, we had extra business here tonight. Thank you very much, Lincoln, for coming on and for contributing towards the rich discussion we've had tonight. Thank you so much. And thank you, our audience, for staying with us. If they come to infiltrate your march, be prepared to defend your march. You can't say you ain't marching because they're going to infiltrate. You got to infiltrate them before they infiltrate you. The objective is that you got to do what you got to do as opposition. You got to do what you got to do. You all do your all thing, as the young people say. And when you all finish doing your all thing, we got serious business. Serious business. See you all tomorrow night. Tomorrow night is Friday. See you all tomorrow night.